In a recent statement, former U.S. President Donald Trump addressed Russian President Vladimir Putin, urging an immediate cessation of hostilities in Ukraine. Trump emphasized the futility of the ongoing conflict, labeling it as ridiculous, and warned of imposing additional sanctions and tariffs on Russia should the aggression persist. He underscored his commitment to facilitating a peaceful resolution, suggesting that Moscow would benefit from engaging in negotiations to end the war. Trump's remarks reflect his administration's stance on the importance of restoring stability in the region and the potential consequences for Russia if it continues its current course. Based on Trump's message, here's a rephrased text in British English. Former President Donald Trump recently directed strong words toward President Vladimir Putin, calling for an immediate end to the conflict in Ukraine. He described the war as senseless and detrimental to both nations, asserting that continued aggression would lead to even harsher economic repercussions for Russia, including expanded sanctions. Trump expressed his willingness to mediate, urging Russia to take steps toward peaceful negotiations. He stated that resolving the crisis diplomatically would not only bring stability to the region, but also restore Russia's position on the global stage. This firm stance highlights the importance of dialogue over conflict, suggesting that the pursuit of peace is the only viable path forward. If you'd like me to refine this further or add specific details, let me know. Trump also underscored the broader implications of the conflict, pointing out its economic and humanitarian toll. He remarked on the devastating impact on civilians and the strain placed on global markets, particularly in energy and food supply chains. In his statement, Trump appealed to Putin to consider the long-term consequences of prolonging the war, not only for Ukraine, but for Russia itself. He emphasized that unity and cooperation among nations would pave the way for a more prosperous future. Furthermore, Trump hinted at the possibility of forging new partnerships if Russia demonstrated a genuine commitment to peace. He framed this as an opportunity for Russia to rebuild trust with the international community and to prioritize the well-being of its people over military ambitions. True strength, Trump concluded, is found not in war, but in the courage to pursue peace. This call to action reflects a broader desire for resolution and stability, urging leaders to place diplomacy at the forefront of their agendas. Trump also highlighted the role of global leaders in fostering peace, urging nations to work collectively to de-escalate the situation. He suggested that a unified international approach could incentivize Russia to choose diplomacy over continued aggression. Addressing the economic impact of the conflict, Trump warned that the sanctions already imposed on Russia were only the beginning should the violence persist. He argued that a peaceful resolution could open the door to economic recovery for Russia, including opportunities for trade and collaboration with the West. In his closing remarks, Trump called on both sides to prioritize humanity over hostility. This war benefits no one. It brings suffering to innocent people, disrupts global stability, and threatens the progress of civilization itself, he said. Trump concluded by expressing optimism about the potential for change. It is never too late to make the right choice. The world is watching, and history will remember those who chose peace over conflict, progress over destruction. These comments reflect a broader call for accountability and a plea for diplomacy to prevail, underscoring the importance of leadership in navigating crises of this magnitude. Trump's statement further touched on the need for transparency and honest dialogue between nations. He called for the establishment of a formal ceasefire as a crucial first step, proposing that international mediators facilitate discussions to ensure both sides could voice their concerns and work toward mutual agreements. He also addressed the humanitarian crisis resulting from the war, urging Russia to allow unrestricted access for humanitarian aid organizations. The suffering of innocent men, women, and children must end, Trump stated. The world has a moral responsibility to act, and Russia must do its part to ease the devastation it has caused. In his message, Trump acknowledged the complexities of geopolitical tensions, but stressed that diplomacy is the most effective tool for resolving them. He appealed directly to Putin's sense of legacy, asking him to consider how history would judge his actions. Will you be remembered as the leader who sought destruction, or the one who had the courage to change course and bring about lasting peace? Trump asked. Finally, Trump reiterated the importance of international cooperation, urging global powers to remain united in their pursuit of peace and stability. He expressed hope that the lessons learned from this conflict would inspire a new era of diplomacy, where dialogue replaces discord and unity triumphs over division. The resistance to Vladimir Putin, both within Russia and on the international stage, is composed of various groups and individuals who oppose his authoritarian government and the policies implemented during his tenure. This resistance has manifested in different forms, including protests, political activism, cultural movements, and diplomatic pressure. Within Russia, domestically, one of the leading opposition figures has been Alexei Navalny, a fierce critic of Putin who gained prominence by exposing corruption within the Russian government. Even after being imprisoned in 2021, Navalny continued to inspire protests and opposition movements, with thousands of Russians risking their freedom to challenge the regime. Moreover, independent journalists, human rights organizations, and artists play crucial roles in the resistance, often facing censorship, repression, and even exile. Despite the restrictions on freedom of expression, digital platforms have become essential tools for disseminating information and organizing protests. On the international stage, externally, resistance to Putin intensified following the invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Numerous countries imposed severe economic sanctions on Russia, aiming to weaken its economy and isolate the government on the global stage. International institutions, such as the United Nations and the European Union, have repeatedly condemned Putin's actions, while non-governmental organizations continue to push for greater support for democratic movements in Russia. The Russian diaspora also plays a significant role, with many immigrants participating in global campaigns against Putin's regime and amplifying the voices of the opposition. Challenges and hopes. The resistance faces significant challenges, such as state repression, government propaganda, and the entrenched authoritarian structure. However, there is hope that continued pressure, both internally and externally, could eventually create space for democratic change in Russia. This struggle reflects the desire of many for a freer and more transparent country, where human rights are respected and society has an active voice in governance. Resistance to Putin is not merely opposition to authoritarianism, but also an affirmation of the human spirit in the face of oppression.